Hey everyone, we're here for another edition of the Spoon Editor podcast. We're all in our remote location, social distancing from one another, but thanks to the miracle of Zoom, we're able to do a podcast. And let's go around the horn real quick. Jen Marston, you're still in New York City?
I am, yes.
All right. And Chris Albrecht, you're going to be traveling to California this week. You're a very brave soul, but you're right now in Seattle area.
Yeah. You know, flying from one epicenter to another.
Exactly. And Catherine, you're usually traveling more than any of us, but you're surprisingly stationary right now.
Oh, I'm here. I'm in the WeWork in Seattle. I think I might be the only person in the WeWork, so it's nice to have it to myself.
I went to the gym yesterday and it was pretty empty during prime time. So I guess if there is a bright side to coronavirus, maybe that's it. But speaking of like maybe looking at coronavirus, which is on the top of everyone's minds lately, Chris, you had a story about the different impacts of coronavirus, maybe how it's kind of treating different startups differently. Can you talk about that?
So coronavirus is it is what everybody is talking about, literally. So it's hard to escape it. And one of the things, we've talked about it in sort of broad strokes, like what is this going to do? And today for the newsletter that's going out this morning, one of the things I want to do is kind of just take a different look at it, which is obviously coronavirus and COVID-19 is this dark cloud that is just basically covering the entire country, if not the entire globe. But there are some silver linings to come out of that. So trying to inject a little optimism into our days. One of the things is, obviously a lot of people have been doing panic shopping, and look, I have done it too. I haven't hoarded toilet paper, but I have certainly stocked up on dry goods just in case social distancing becomes more of a mandated thing, which is something our governor has talked about. So as a result, stores are barren, right? If my local Safeway is still out of cleaning supplies, like 2 weeks into this thing. And the pasta aisle has been decimated. And
have you had to make your own hand sanitizer yet?
No. But I'm also not using
vodka.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not using Tito's. But on the other side of that, especially as it relates to like food tech watchers, which is more people are ordering groceries online. So much so that Amazon was like deluged a couple of weeks ago with people panic shopping, basically. I saw this stat that NPD says that like 21% of U.S. consumers ordered perishable groceries online in the last month, which is up from 18% at the same time last year. And the reason that this is kind of a silver lining, I'm not going to say it's a good thing, but the reason that it's silver lining is because we've seen grocery stores and retailers invest a lot of money in order fulfillment, online grocery, micro fulfillment, robotics, self-driving delivery. These are all things they're putting in place. And because people are kind of being forced into trying online grocery shopping out now, we're going to be able to turn around and see how many of those people are going to stick around with online grocery shopping sooner. And then we're also going to be able to see like, okay, they've stuck around. How are these systems working and what are they going to do? So, that's, if there's like a silver lining, I'm not going to say it's a great thing that we're all forced into it this way, but like this will have, this is like speeding things up. And I think that's kind of the crux. I wanted to hand it over to Jen because what coronavirus is doing is sort of forcing the issue forcing issues that need to be grappled with. And Jen, I know you've written about like the gig workers for third-party deliveries like DoorDash and others. And this is really making them reckon with some issues, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it really started in China when China started introducing this thing called contactless delivery, which is, there's no human-to-human handoff of the food when it's being delivered. That's true of restaurants and groceries. Someone would put it on the doorstep, it's all prearranged within the app. But the difference being that China has very strict, I believe, policies around sanitizing the delivery bags and taking workers' temperatures and things like that. So this week, Postmates, Instacart, they were two of the big delivery companies that said they were also introducing contactless delivery. All these questions came up about, well, that's great for the customer, but what about the drivers and the couriers who are out and about constantly making these deliveries? I know there was one courier who the Wall Street Journal interviewed who use the phrase front lines. You know, they're so they, you know, questions have come up about, okay, so if delivery is going to surge because of social distancing, because people don't want to go out to eat, what can these companies do to better protect their workers? And I think that discussion has really accelerated. I mean, you know, it's obviously more about actions than words right now, but we have seen, even within the last 24 hours now, DoorDash has instituted policies for contactless delivery, as well as making sure that drivers and couriers have the things they need, like cleaning sprays and disinfectant wipes, all those supplies. And then restaurant chains, Darden in particular, released news this morning. Darden owns Olive Garden and a few other chains, that they're implementing paid sick leave for hourly workers, which, you know, I think it's something like 25% or maybe more of service workers don't have paid sick leave. So, you know, these people are going to go to work because they need the money. You got to work to pay the rent, basically. And, you know, if they are sick, that just risks further spreading any infection. So, but I think what was interesting in the case of Darden is that they were already talking a little bit about making this paid sick leave available for hourly workers. And the CEO just basically came out and said, look, because of the current conditions, we just accelerated this policy. It's permanent, but, you know, it's happening faster than it might have had we not been in this situation. So I think, you know, it'll be interesting to see how many other restaurant groups and delivery companies just start to really focus on this question of how are we treating the people behind the food getting delivered.
Restaurants are known for just being brutally difficult environments to work in. And gig economy workers, basically, like you said, on the delivery front side, are on the front lines, and there's no safety net for these folks. So the fact we're having this conversation is good. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I do think it is worth pointing out that, you know, DoorDash and Uber, and I mean, Lyft's not food delivery, but it's gig economy. These are also the same companies who are raising millions of dollars to fight Assembly Bill 5 in California, which reclassifies gig workers as employees, in which case they would get things like paid sick leave. So, you know, I guess I question sort of, you know, I think we definitely need to keep an eye on, particularly with the gig economy stuff, you know, how much of it is lip service and how much of it is actually going to have long-term benefits for the workers themselves.
Definitely. I think coronavirus is just something we're just going to be talking about for pretty much the rest of this year. Trying to find different angles is one of the challenges, and I think this side of it is really interesting one to watch, and we'll keep an eye on it. One of the other technologies that I think is just getting accelerated in light of everything that's happening is just automation and humanless interactions. When I think of that, when I think of grocery stores, I think of Amazon's cashierless technology. And Chris, you had a story I think it was yesterday, about how Amazon is just starting to sell its walk out technology to other retailers, which I think was really interesting. And it reminded me of what they did basically a decade ago or more with their cloud technology, which at the time and to a large degree still is industry leading. And they decided to basically say, hey, we have this best in class technology. Why don't we let others take advantage of it and sell it to others? It seems like they're doing the same with their grocery tech.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, the Amazon Go stores and their latest, the Go grocery store, uses a series of cameras, and you scan your phone and you walk in, and basically you grab what you want and leave, and you get charged automatically on your way out the door. So there's no checkout line, no nothing. It keeps track of what you're buying, which is important. We can get to that more in a second. But yes, so what they did is they've branded this as the Just Walk Out technology, and they have opened it up to third parties. So that means that other retailers could easily set up, or I shouldn't say easily. Let me rephrase that. So other retailers now have access to pretty much that same Go technology. There is a big difference, which is these retailers, if they buy on, don't need to have it Go is an app based. You download the Go app and scan it on your way in. But with these other retailers, you use your credit card. And so you stick your credit card in, and if you want your receipt, you can associate your email with that credit card. But I think you're right, Mike. Like, this is, the AWS launched thousands of startups, right? It made cloud computing and processing power cheap and easy to set up for people. So you could get, storage and processing power and all of that stuff sort of on demand like a utility. And this, I wonder how it will do the same thing, if it'll do the same thing for retailers, right? So retailers now will be able to get the technological infrastructure, something that they're not, they sell items. They're not in the business of technology. They can get it up and going quickly. So will this, in addition to just retailers, but will brands take advantage of this to create small pop-up experiences that are cashierless, right? They don't have to have a person running the store. They can build an experience within another store. It opens up a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, and I think in your post you asked, like, you weren't sure if other big chains would use it. I actually thought, like, maybe you're thinking the same thing. It sounds like it. Maybe the mom and pop shop. Like, if you're a mom and pop shop, you clearly don't you have a single grocery store. You can't invest in this type of technology. But gosh darn, if you can make your experience more like Amazon Go, and to a certain degree, use some of this technology, why wouldn't you?
Well, I also likened it to, like, back in the day. Do you remember no one ever gets fired for buying IBM?
Yeah.
Right. Like, and so Amazon is so well known at this. It would be hard for somebody to go like, oh yeah, well, I've looked at all my options and I'm going to go with this other company, when Amazon is there and can probably match prices and has the scale and size to really create a robust sort of sales channel. And, the reason I don't think big box retailers like Albertsons or Kroger would kind of sign on is because they're already fighting Amazon, right? Amazon they just launched a grocery store. They're about to launch another one this month in Woodside, California. I don't think you would necessarily, want to help feed the Amazon beast.
And there are other options.
Yeah, and there are lots of other options. Yeah, like Grabango, Trigo, Caper, iFi, all of these also create cashierless experiences that retrofit existing stores.
My question was going to be, who is the target audience for this? You guys have kind of talked about that. I think definitely it makes sense for a pop-up experience with a brand. I'm wondering with the mom and pop, I think it might just depend on the cost. Like, if this is a really small one-off, like, local store that's very curated, are they going to want this sort of technology? Can they afford this sort of technology? Or as part of the experience for these smaller community stores, like, also interacting with humans? It's something to think about.
I think one way to think of, oh, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, no, I think Catherine made a great point. It all depends on the store. If it's like a high touch, experience, like you're interacting, it's artisanal or whatever, like, you may not want to automate. But even like if there's a component of, like, they can simply keep better inventory and track what's on the store shelves, but still have that high touch. Like, maybe there's just a piece of what this technology they can use.
Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I also think you look at a company like Zippin, which also does this sort of cashierless checkout services, but what they do is they create these modular stores that you can build quickly, and they have them inside like stadiums. So yes, mom and pops might be one market, but also, to your point, Catherine, also like more regional chains that are just smaller, but they could create pop-up stores inside airports or train stations or office buildings, right? Like, they could extend their brand into other spaces without having to build out a full store and staff it with a bunch of people, right? Like, they can create small retail experiences that could pop up quickly and be there semi-permanently or, permanently or whatever, or just move around. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think, to Mike's point, like, if AWS was any indicator, then this could be a nice line of business for them.
I would definitely want to read the terms of service and, like, know exactly what Amazon has access to. I think that, as we've seen with Amazon, like, good potential partner, like, horrible company to compete against, because like,
they will stab you in the back.
They will stab you in the back. They've done it before. They've partnered with IoT companies. They've worked with the companies on Alexa, and they turn around and then do exactly the same product. And if they have access to, like, your data, if you're a local mom and pop grocery store, and then set up an Amazon Go stand in Edmonds, Washington, where I live, and put the local grocery store out of business, then, like, oh well. I mean, that's a horrible thing. So I mean, buyer beware. Like this could be really interesting, but buyer beware.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing, right? Like who has access to that data? Because it's Amazon's technology and Amazon's cloud that if you think it's not just getting the money from somebody, right? Like if you're able to monitor somebody in a store and see which products they pick up and which ones they put back, which ones they keep, when they shop, how often they shop, like that stuff, that's all going to feed the Amazon algorithm beast, right? And it can take that information and apply it to its own stores. So definitely caveat emptor.
Yeah. And we are by no means recommending using this technology if they put you out of business. So just put that caveat. Speaking of taking your food and and having it with you and just walking out of the store or taking it with you. This story that you wrote, Catherine, about like Sweetgreen, I didn't know that their takeaway bowls were not fully compostable. I know that they developed a good reputation for their in-venue compostability on their containers, but like the takeaway bowls have not been compostable, but that's going to change.
Yes. First of all, great transition right there. Second of all, yes, I wrote a story yesterday about Sweetgreen, and I think that you are not alone, Mike, and even Sweetgreen did not fully know that their to-go bowls for their salads were not compostable. So Sweetgreen, if you have never been into one, really prides themselves on being sustainable, low waste. They have little signs that say when you throw things away, none of this will go into a landfill. And that's something that they really work towards. They do a lot of composting, and that's easy when it's within the store and they have connections with compost companies. But if you're taking your salad to go, throwing it away at your office or your home, maybe you don't have access to compost. So you're throwing it into a landfill. And if the containers are fully biodegradable, then eventually it'll break down regardless. But there was a big study in the New Food Economy, which is now called The Counter, which noted that all of these sort of molded fiber bowls from Sweetgreen, which they say are compostable, actually contain these chemicals called PFAS, which are also known as forever chemicals. It's the same thing that's in like nonstick pans, and basically they never biodegrade. So
aren't they also linked to cancer? Sorry to interrupt.
Well, yes, but they haven't done enough studies to prove that, so I didn't include it. But basically, they're not good. You don't want them. They could be hazardous. They could be unhealthy, but they definitely don't break down. So if you're feeling very virtuous, throwing away your salad in your compostable bowl, actually, up until last month, you have not been fully throwing things that will be biodegradable. But Sweetgreen just started, they partnered with this company called Footprint, and they're making actual compostable bowls that are completely free of PFAS. And yes, that's because Sweetgreen is very conscious about sustainability, but also San Francisco just passed this new legislation starting January 1st this year that is mandating that all single-use food serviceware, we're talking containers, cups, and cutlery, must be completely free of PFAS. So they were also kind of forced into it. But yes, right now, if you're getting any Sweetgreen salads to go in San Francisco, you'll be using these new bowls. And then they're rolling it out to the rest of their stores in 2020. And so I wrote about that, but also just looked at that Sweetgreen as someone that's kind of on the forefront of sustainable packaging and also is maybe pushing its competitors to take some bigger steps along that space. I mean, Chipotle also has these compostable bowls that do have PFAS. Are they going to follow suit? Also, these big fast food chains like Taco Bell, Starbucks, McDonald's, Chick-fil-A have all made these pledges to reduce or completely eliminate waste going into landfills within the next 10 or 20 years. So it's a trend we're going towards slowly, but hopefully surely.
It also has, like everything we're talking about nowadays, a coronavirus COVID-19 angle, and that like Sweetgreens as well as Starbucks is basically saying, hey, let's not use, or they're kind of de-emphasizing for the next little while reusable containers. Mm-hmm. I know that like Starbucks has basically said over the past week that they're basically not going to be using reusable container cups and forcing everyone to use paper cups.
Yeah, I don't know if Sweetgreen had that option. Some places do, some places don't, that let you bring in your own reusable like vessel for takeaway food.
Yeah.
Starbucks and coffee shops, obviously that's a bit easier, but yes, Sweetgreen is eliminating that. I'd be curious. I know Blue Bottle, the coffee chain, is working towards being zero waste, and they're prioritizing a lot of reusable drink vessels. I don't know if they're also eliminating that for now with the COVID outbreak, but it's something
I wondered, yeah,
might be happening. And we've mentioned like this is something that will be on people's minds for at least a couple more months. Is this going to derail some of the efforts people have?
That was exactly my thought with Blue Bottle, actually, because, when they said they were going to go zero waste in 2020, they admitted it could be difficult and expensive and it may not work, but we're going to try this anyways. And that, seemed like such a great thing. I walked by a Blue Bottle yesterday, actually, and was just thinking, okay, how, there is all this concern about spreading coronavirus. Like, how is it going to delay their plans? Is it going to completely derail them? Like, how is that going to factor into some of these zero waste initiatives we're seeing?
Yeah. Well, speaking of the silver lining, if people are getting more and more things to go or delivered, then there will be more packaging used and hopefully more sustainable packaging, as San Francisco is saying no PFAS. Seattle as well has gotten on board, and probably some other cities will too. So hopefully as this becomes more prevalent and front of mind, people will be more conscious about prioritizing sustainability in packaging and making things actually compostable if they can't do reusable.
Can I just also say, this also just really sucks. Like, how is it, like, if a company doesn't know, this also happened with like Nadamu. They were all set to announce a compostable packaging and then learn like, actually it's not, there's still a plastic layer or something to it that, and if companies don't know, how is a person supposed to know? Like, I'm at the grocery store and I have a takeaway container. Am I allowed? I mean, I think I'm doing good, but what am I, it drives me crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's also just resources you have access to. I mean, maybe it's compostable in store, but we're very, very lucky. I have a compost that gets picked up every week, but most places around the country probably don't. So it's like, are you expecting that these sort of waste channels will be available to everyone? Because they're not. So that's another layer.
Well, the final story of the day, I was not able to think of a transition for this one, Catherine. So, although it does have an automation
You can't have them all. Yeah.
It's humanless food dispensing. Chris, you wrote about last week, Basil Street raising $10 million for pizza vending machines. I can't believe, quite honestly, there's another pizza vending machine out there. Although this is a little bit different than I have to bring up Pizzemetry, which is
Pizza Mitri. We don't know.
Pizza Mitri, which basically cooks pizza in a vending machine. This one is basically dispenses frozen pizzas.
It reheats the pizzas.
Reheats the pizza. Okay.
Yeah, so it's not spitting out frozen pizzas. Yeah. Basil Street, they've actually been around for about a year. I wrote about them last year when they were sort of friends and family funded, and they just got a $10 million round of funding. And basically, I'm going to harp on this because this is like my favorite topic. We are on the cusp of this new golden age in vending machines, where it's no longer racks of Texas-sized cinnamon buns and double mint gum. It is it is fresh food baked hot and served hot, right? And this Basil Street, it stores all the pizzas. I think it's like 150 pizzas, I want to say. And they're pre-made and then frozen and then reheated using some patent pending technology for reheating pizzas. And it spits it out right there in the store for, between like $8 and $10, depending on where you're at and what kind of pizza you order. They offer 4 different types of pizzas. And it is, we're just going to see more and more of these pop up. If you think about like airports or, college dorms or hospitals where we've seen, like Chowbotics has seen a lot of success. Chowbotics makes Sally, the robot vending machine, the robot salad making vending machine. And you've, Yokai Express, which makes hot ramen instantly, is now at Terminal 3 in San Francisco Airport. Like, these are all things that are coming online right now, and they're going to drastically kind of change the way food is considered in high traffic areas like airports and college dorms and hospitals and factories that operate, around the clock, because these machines can operate 24 hours a day, and they can, serve a decent meal that is fresh in the case of salad or like a latte, or in the case of Cafe X and Brigo. And so you're going to be able to basically put like a food court in a small nook of an airport, and we're just going to see more and different types of cuisine come online. And I'm really excited for it, because if you're at an airport early in the morning, you want to be able to get something to eat. Or if you're a hospital worker, and the cafeteria closes at 2 p.m., what are you going to do? So I'm really excited about sort of what this all portends to, if I'm using that word correctly.
Remember, like all the red boxes just started showing up in front of 7-Elevens. Could like we start seeing these in front of like other types of retailers, or
even the Basil Street guy last year was saying that there's no reason they couldn't have it in like a grocery store. Like not every grocery store can be Whole Foods with some wood-fired pizza thing, right? But there's no reason why you couldn't have it in their food court. And their whole thing is also just their machines are IoT connected, so they can understand, they can get all kinds of data. So pizza for them is just the beginning, and the idea being like, well, we could heat up all different kinds of food depending on what people want and what people buy. So yeah, if you just think of anywhere where there are a lot of people milling about and they want food quickly, right? This isn't going to replace a restaurant. It's meant to be something that gets you a hot meal in under 90 seconds, and is something different than, like a Snickers bar.
Yeah, I could totally see these like in train stations or just places where people are on the go. I definitely think this is a more scalable, deployable solution than Pizzemetry, Pizza Me Try, which, Catherine, if you remember, I think about a year ago, or a year and a half ago, we actually tried Pizzemetry. They actually flew one out to Seattle to demo to some people. And Chris, I don't know if you ever had a chance to try it, but the pizza is actually pretty good. But the Pizzemetry machine was like the size of a small Datsun. It was so huge.
Yeah.
It was huge, and it took a long time because, it's fresh ingredients, so that's cool, but they're like shaping the dough, putting all the ingredients on there. Like it just is a bit of a process, so it takes a lot longer than reheating a frozen pizza, and maybe a little bit less consistent as well.
It was really cramped for the small pizza cook who had to cram inside there.
Yeah, totally.
So, I think what you're going to see is more like the Yokai and the Basil Street, which is frozen. People making them on site and then just keeping them cold. That makes it easier to ship and move around and store, right? You don't have a lot of different ingredients. You will have, for something like a salad, Chowbotics makes sense, right? Because people don't want a frozen salad. So I think that rather than trying to turn it into like an actual chef that makes a meal right there, you'll just have them, you'll see developments in the way food is reheated so that it's tasty and not just like nuked on the way out of the machine.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to see one of these in my local train station or in the airport. It seems like if you want to check out these next generation machines, fly to San Francisco because it seems like they have a ton of them. And it sounds like, Chris, maybe you have a chance to do that. That's it for today, though. We're running out of time. I just want to thank you guys for jumping on. Before we go, I just want to tell everyone we're actually having an online event next week, next Thursday, talking about cloud kitchens, ghost kitchens. You can find out more about that at The Spoon. And Jen, I'm excited for you to be on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, thanks guys for joining us, and make sure to wash your hands.
Will do.
Doing it right now.
All right, guys. Thanks,
All
everyone.
right.
Bye.
Bye.